Hello everyone, this is Tom Rowe, Product Evangelist for CentreStack. Welcome to another CentreStack tutorial. Now today I'm looking at how easy it is to set up a CentreStack server. So when you first start looking into CentreStack, you might arrive at our CentreStack Documentation page. This fully leverages the Enterprise File Sync and Share platform. Try it for free. Now if you click try it for free, you can easily set up a partner account. It doesn't require anything as far as credit card or any detailed information, just the basics. And then we'll go ahead and send you a link to get you logged into the partner portal. Once you're in the portal, you'll see well, let me back up a little bit. Looking at the documentation, you see a lot of guides here. And then once you get into CentreStack, you might be looking at something like the administration guide. Now, when you first look at the admin guide, it gives you a basic structure of how CentreStack is set up. And then you go into administrative scope, and that's got, more information. And then you go down to cluster admin, and now we're looking at a lot of content here. And some people see this and they're intimidated by just how many options and features there are on the CentreStack platform, and that's understandable. So I don't want that to be an impediment to you trying it out. So the very first thing that you're going to do is ignore the documentation. Okay, so just open up a tab in a browser, and then you'll go to CentreStack.com. Let me show you what that looks like. And then you'll want to log into your partner account. If you don't have one, you can go ahead and get one for free. But I have one, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now, in your partner account, you see a lot of options again, and there are some training videos here that you can go through to get the basics. But let's just jump ahead really quick, because the point of this is that it's easy. And I want to demonstrate just how easy that is. See this little hamburger menu here? If I click that, one of my options is the private cloud server. So I'm going to pull that down. And we'll go to self-hosted clusters. And I've already got one here that I'm using for other tutorials. But what I want to do is go to downloads, because I'm going to set up a brand new server. I have a Windows Server 2016, and I'm going to download this because it works on all of these. And we'll let the app figure out what to do. Here's my executable. Yours may have downloaded, depending on your browser, to a download folder. So you'll need to navigate to that and then run the executable. So just to demonstrate it like that, I'll show in the folder. I can go ahead and close this browser now. I don't need it anymore. And we'll double click that and hit run. Next, agree to the terms. Now here's where you can see that it's going to install everything it needs to get you up and running. Okay, so this is going to take about 15 minutes, maybe up to 20, depends on your configuration. And I'm going to use the magic of time travel to accelerate this process up and get it done in a few seconds so that we can move forward with this tutorial. So we get a pop-up here. It says reboot is needed to complete the installation. Reboot now. Hit yes. I'm using a virtual machine for this demonstration. So you're going to log into Windows Server. And now CentreStack is going to do some stuff in the background and get everything ready to go. So you need to just be patient at this point. CentreStack will give you a visual cue when it's time to start moving forward with the setup. At this point in the process, I've been going about 20 minutes, and that doesn't include all the talking I did at the beginning about the documentation. Of course, you're seeing the shortened version, the abridged version of that setup, but all of the events that take place will be complete. Some of them will have just been sped up a little bit. Okay, so my default browser has opened. And the first thing I see for my CentreStack Enterprise setup is this screen that says Configure Database. The default setting is all-in-one. Highly recommended for people who are trying this out. Just let CentreStack install its database and get everything set up for you. However, you can go with MySQL, SQL Server. So if you want to integrate your own database, that's available to you. But I'm going to go with the default for now. And here you can see we're using the MySQL Community Edition. We'll hit apply here. The next screen that you get is the Create Default Admin Account. This is going to be your root admin account information. So I'm just going to create my default here. So you can bring up the terms of service if you want to read those. Of course you should. I've already read them, so I'm going to sign in. And here we are. Okay, so normally at this point I would sign up now. Sign in with an existing partner account, the one that I used when I did my initial download. So here I am. I am now logged in to my dashboard at localhost. So even if you're not connected to the internet, you could still open a browser and log in with localhost and get access to your CentreStack. I can add a new tenant, I can migrate from Anchor, or I can be the default tenant. Now normally, because this is a multi-tenant environment, so I'm going to choose add a new tenant. So I'm going to leave the defaults here, default cluster admin and my email, and you could set up a new admin for this account if you'd like. My organization name, let's go with one of these generic names. I'm going to go with Acme Cloud. Our user plan, let's choose 3 users. And the storage plan, 0 is unlimited, so I'm just going to put 0 in there. I'm going to hit continue just so you can see the settings. So if you do this and you see email is already used for registration, it's already used for my default registration, so I'm going to create a tenant email. So we'll just call this tenant admin 01. If I do want to change this, let system generate password. This is just a stand-in email right now, so I don't want it to send an email. I'm going to put in my own password here. And we can leave everything else and let's hit continue. So we'll close that. Now, if you already have a domain set up for this account, you would enter it here. And that's important because if you're doing a multi-tenant environment, you don't want to leave this field blank because you would want per tenant branding. That way each tenant could have their own logo and branding and color scheme, etc. I'm just going to leave it blank for now. This is important if you don't want to have to deal with this later. but you might want to change these settings. I'm going to leave it at tenant never expires. Allow the tenant to attach external cloud storage. Allow tenant to edit branding settings. Allow the creation of guest users. Your security might not want to allow that, so you might want to disable that. Allow tenant to edit LDAP setting so they can connect to their Active Directory. View and edit group policy, very important. There's a whole lot of settings under group policy, so you probably want to give them access to that. Of course, if you have turned off access to some of these things, that doesn't mean that you can't get in there as the CS admin, as the CentreStack admin. You can get in and modify those settings. Allow tenant to increase user plan automatically. If your user is connecting to an Active Directory that has hundreds or thousands of users, and they attempt to import those users, they're going to run into trouble unless you allow them to increase their user plan. But it has happened in the past where an admin has set up a tenant, and the tenant has imported AD users and used up all of their licenses. So that's something you have to plan for. If you know you're adding a user with hundreds of licenses, then make sure that you have those licenses available for when they do add them. Show data at rest encryption configuration page. This will require an empty storage container. I'm not going to get into that right now. This is just an introductory setup tutorial. Okay, so automatically assign a subfolder from cluster default tenant. When selected, the tenant's default storage will be a subfolder inside the cluster default tenant's storage folder. It is easier to manage when you don't need per tenant storage access credentials. You could change this to use existing file server or local disk as default storage. And this will allow you to set it up in a different location. You could use cloud storage. And under there we have lots of options so that you could choose a cloud storage option if you have an account with one of these options. I'm going to go ahead and set up a subfolder setup to keep things simple. Okay, so here we have Acme Cloud. It's got 3 users. The users can be incremented automatically. The storage plan is unlimited. There is no custom DNS. Expiration is never. And admin rights, edit admin, etc., etc. So all those things are in place. Now it's creating my tenant. And here we have it. Acme Cloud has been created. And you can see that the only user in Acme Cloud right now is the tenant admin 01 that I established when I set up the tenant. When you're a tenant admin or you're logged in as the cluster admin and you're helping to set this up, one of the first things you'll want to do is create a team folder. All of these options are available. You could set it up with a cloud storage solution. You could connect to a server agent's file server. You could use the local network where CentreStack is installed. You could use existing tenant storage, which is what I'm going to use at this point. So we'll go with default. Now let's create a name for the team folder. We'll just call it team folder. We'll keep it obvious. Now we can make this a secure data room, which means it can only be viewed in a web file portal. We can turn on this don't show folder. User doesn't have permission to access. Once subfolders are created in the team folder, you may have permissions for various users, like you may have a manager folder versus a user folder. And if you create that kind of environment, you may not want the users to see the manager folder, and you could turn that on to do that. Disable further sharing. You can come back and turn this on, which will stop people from sharing to guest users. create CIF share. You can disable offline access, but if you turn this on, then when they're using the client, they won't be able to right-click a folder and say offline it so that they can get access to it when the internet is not connected. So this will create a hindrance if they're not connected to the internet, unless for some security reason you need that to be enabled, then you'd want to turn that on. So now here we are. We want to add some collaborators. Let's just say the admin already has access. Let's just add one user so you can see it from that point of view. Okay, so I'm going to hit the plus, create a new user. We'll make this a native user, and we'll call this native girl. We'll leave the quota but I could restrict the quota if I'd like to. So I want to go ahead and enter my own password since I don't plan on using the email feature. And I don't want the user to change the password, and I'm not going to send a welcome email. Right. So the team folder is set up. I'm going to give this new user, read and write access, and commit. I can close this. Let's go ahead and refresh this. We'll go into Acme Cloud, and there's my team folder, and there's Native Girl as a collaborator. Now under the collaborators menu, we have a lot of options here. Something that you're probably tempted to do is to go into folder permissions and turn on these permissions. But just be aware that if you add a permission here for one of your users, that takes precedence over the collaborator permissions. So if you don't want to specify restrictions on this folder, then you don't want to do anything in this area. All right? So I'm going to hit cancel. You can, of course, force everybody to download all the files, but we'll ignore that for now. Let's go back to collaborators. You don't have to do anything else for this user to gain access to the folder. All right? Let's go back out to Tenant Dashboard. Now this is taking up my whole view here. I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of this window. And you've essentially finished setting up your CentreStack server. You've created a user that can get access to the server from their local computer. And you're ready to go. Now there's a couple of things you might want to do to finish this up. You probably want to connect to an Active Directory so that you can import your AD users. I'll go ahead and set that up. First thing you have to do is hit edit so you don't accidentally change something. Then you hit enable, and then you're going to type in your controller. And then you want to enter the administrator name that has root access to that Active Directory and their password. This is the password for the Active Directory administrator. We hit apply. I'll go ahead and see. There we go. Alright, so my Active Directory is connected now. You could go to advanced settings and configure these things, but I'm going to leave them at their defaults right now. We can go ahead and close this. Now you can see that your local Active Directory is connected right there. You can also connect a remote Active Directory. So typically on a remote machine, a machine located on another network that has a file server available that you want to get access to, or you as the administrator might be at another location or be logged in remotely to another location. And I'll go ahead and show you how that works. So we would go to the computer. We would open a browser. So you would use the domain to log in, or I'm going to use an IP. And here I am, logged in from another machine. Let's go ahead and you get a tutorial the first time you log in. We'll go ahead and skip that. And logged in from here as the tenant admin, I now get this download option. And on this machine, I would want to install not the desktop client, but the server agent, because I want to connect to my local file server. So I would choose the option for me. I hit go. In a few seconds, I get this MSI installer, and that would allow me to install the server agent. Now I've already installed it on this machine. It's incredibly easy. It takes just a couple of minutes, not like the CentreStack install. This really does just take a couple of minutes, so it's very fast, and you're up and going. And you just follow the instructions to set that up. So here we are. If I have connected a server agent using the method I just showed you, it will show up here automatically because I downloaded it from the web portal. It's all automatically connected to this CentreStack, and so it will show up immediately. And you can imagine how much stress that solves for people who are getting into this for the first time, and they can just connect all these machines instantaneously by using the clients that are built into the web portal from any machine at any location. You can log into the web portal as a user that's authorized. In the case that I just demonstrated, I am the cluster admin, tenant admin 01, and I was able to log in and download and install the server agent, and then boom, it'll be connected to this web portal. Now I have a team folder, I have my users set up, and I'm ready to go. The only thing I haven't shown you is what it looks like for your user when they log in. Now this user is not an admin, okay? So they're going to see a different view. They're going to see the files that you have made available to them. That way they don't get into all of these settings and get it so complicated that they might get overwhelmed. We just want them to get access to their files, and so they can collaborate through team folders, and they can upload their files, and they can attach local folders and do all of that stuff. Now this machine does not have a client installed, so what I do is open a browser. I need to navigate to my CentreStack web portal, which will be a domain, or in this case an IP address. I need to log in with the credentials that were given to me as a user of that CentreStack. Once logged in, you could see that what a non-admin user sees is essentially just the folders that are available to them. Everyone gets their documents in a pictures folder, and they get access to any team folders that you have shared. And we've got this folder right here. I'm going to get some files that I can use just to show you that I already have access to the web portal without doing anything else. So now there's some files in the team folder. Now let me download my client. Every user gets access to this download tool. And if you're a Mac user, you would install the client from here. I'm a Windows user, so I'll use this one. There's my download. I can just click this to run it, but I'm going to show you what it does with it. As typical, it puts it in your downloads folder. You can run it from there. So here's your client installer. I wanted you to see how fast this is. Just agree to the terms. All of your users can do this on their own machines and get access to the team folder for collaboration. And it's done. Now it'll take a few more seconds for it to set everything up. It's showing me an invalid token because in a previous tutorial I had a client installed on here, but you probably won't see that. Even if you do, just hit OK. And then you want to make sure that your access point is correct for that CentreStack installation. You want to enter the proper username. And next time it'll log in automatically. Now I am connected to the CentreStack, and I have a cloud agent installed that will be located here once it's active. I like to drag it out here so that I can see it. And then if you click that, it gives you access to all of your settings. Now this is your folder. It's a local folder. Acts like any drive that you would have attached to your computer. It's the M drive that could be customized by the admin. You can see the files that I uploaded are already here. If I go into the team folder, so one of the first things you might want to do is right click in here and choose force refresh, and that'll make sure you're seeing everything that's in the folder, because the first time it might be there but it hasn't refreshed yet. So that'll take care of that. So here we are back at the web portal. The admin is signed in. And signed in as an admin, you'll notice that when I click on the team folder, I only see the collaborators. I can get to storage, but I can't really look at what's in there. It's not for security reasons. Everybody has their own secure files that are based on the permissions that they've been given. Now I can click the folder icon to get into my file browser, and there I can see my documents and my pictures, because even the admin has a file browser. But you'll notice I'm not seeing the team folder. Let's log in as a different user. Okay, now logged in as the tenant admin, I see the team folder, because the team folder is a tenant admin level activity. The tenant admin has access to that folder as an administrator for the tenant, but the cluster admin does not. So hopefully that was informative and takes away some of the potential intimidation of setting up a CentreStack environment for the first time. It takes about 30 minutes from beginning to end if you are comfortable with the setup process. I've taken a bit longer here because I did a lot of talking and a lot of explaining, but you can see that the steps are quite simple. If you accept the defaults, it's very quick indeed. So I hope that's helpful. Once again, this is Tom Rowe, Product Evangelist for CentreStack, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.